Did everybody see the movie? So
Yes,
yes.
of course.
All right.
Yeah.
When did you see it?
Last week.
Last week.
Oh, fantastic.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. Great. All right. So shoot, who's gonna? You just gonna go around, or how do you want to do it? You start.
I start.
Oh.
Let's do it. Who came first with the idea of making something new? I mean, not a race movie, but
All right.
something about fighters. So.
There's a couple things we like to do. Disney Toon Studios makes. What we do is we work within a world. So we know we're going to tell multiple stories within one sort of world. In this case, the world of anthropomorphized vehicles. But what one of the things we like to do is we like to change the genre. So when we're working on, Play Hall did the first film, which is a race film, and for this film we looked to change the genre. That way we're less likely to be derivative of the previous film. So we thought, we sort of adventured into this world of wildfire air attack. But what really led us there was, and I spoke to, I think I mentioned this to someone, they're playing Dusty, Crop Hopper, in real life. That plane, that crop duster, is used in wildfire air attack. It's known as a seat, a single engine air tanker. So the plane itself sort of led us into this world of firefighting. And then ultimately, a different genre, the sort of action comedy.
Okay, so how did you work? John Lasseter is the producer of the movie. How did you work with him on the project?
Oh, yeah. John is very involved in the process. He's a real hands-on guy, and it's fantastic to have him as a sort of as a mentor to me and as a creative leader to the studio.
Yeah, that's just the one constant with all the animation studios under the Disney umbrella, Pixar, Walt Disney Animation, and Disney Toon Studios. Is John oversees all of our movies. Is very much involved in the creative process, and he's a good barometer. He's really great because he's such a great. I mean, he's an artist at heart. He's a director, so it's great to have a director who kind of oversees the movies, who can help support you, and is always pushing you and pushing the boundaries, having you test yourself. And it's always a great outside voice to come in with fresh eyes to be sure you're elevating constantly the story.
There are a scene with an old American series, Chips. I don't know if it's the same title.
Oh, right, Chips.
Why this series?
Wait, why is that?
Why do you choose
Chips? Mostly because I could change one vowel and it became chops. So it was very convenient. Helicopters. So that was mostly it. What we want to do, this sort of speaks to your question about changing the film, looking for a different way, different storytelling ideas. We looked at Blade Ranger, and I wanted to make sure I had a character, a mentor character who was fully realized, who had already come to terms with tragedy in his life and moved on, so that he could then later in the film share that wisdom with Dusty. And I just thought there was this great idea that he used to play a rescue helicopter on TV, and then because you guys seen the movie, because of this tragic event, he was unable to save his friend, and that changed him forever. And now he does it for real. So I just thought it was a great way to show a backstory, but in a very entertaining, hopefully very entertaining way.
Okay, thank you.
Except the new film of Tinkerbell, what are the next projects of Disney Toon Studio?
Oh,
Well, we have research kind of drive the story we want to tell. We don't want to pick a story first and then research it. We'll dive into the world and from there discover. So like Bob said, when he was kind of researching our movie and discovered that the same plane, the first movie also is used for wildfire air attack, that informed Bob's on the direction he wanted to take this movie and inspired us to want to tell that story, because there's never been a firefighter movie told in animation before. That was new and thrilling for us. So right now, I'm saying all that because we don't like to put ourselves on a timeline to make a movie, because it takes 4 years. It's a big, long investment of your life, your creative brain power to make a movie, so you want to be sure it's something that's worth telling and that inspires you. So right now we're kind of in the development stage, and only until we find something, that nugget that throws us into a direction we want to tell, that's when we start. So right now we're just kind of we're incubating right now.
Right. But I mean, I think it's a good thing to say, and I think it's sort of a indirect answer to that question is Disney Toon Studios, along with Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios, we consider them filmmaker-driven studios. The stories come from the filmmakers, or the filmmakers go out and find the story through their research or through their looking out there to see something that they can grasp onto, be passionate about, and then nurture through the long, arduous process of making an animated film. So we would never rush into anything. At the end of the day, it's all about telling a great story, having appealing characters, having a believable, exciting world to spend time in, and you never want to rush into that. So we're always looking and thinking about what we can do next, and when the right story comes along, then we'll sort of start the process.
Thank you. Is there any sequels planned or just Cars 3?
Well, that it sort of speaks to the same question. But to sort of a variation on that answer, as I mentioned, Disney Toon Studios, the thing that sort of differentiates us from Walt Disney Animation Studios or Pixar is we do work within one world. Like the Tinkerbell films, we knew, this is a world worthy of multiple stories. So in this case, we're working in the world of anthropomorphized vehicles. So we will continue to sort of explore that world for more stories.
Maybe with boats or...
You name it. The thing is, there's so many. Not only there's so many fantastic vehicles out there, but there's so many amazing people and wonderful stories to sort of tap. When we were working on this film, I didn't know anything about really firefighting. I sort of let the plane kind of guide me to what we were going to do next. And then when we went out and met with the firefighters and listened to their stories and looked at the planes, and I even went up in a helicopter and did some crazy stunts. We came back from meeting these people, the firefighters, and we came back changed, and it was very important for us to tell a story and make a film that they would be proud of. So, again, we'll continue to sort of kind of play in this sandbox, so to speak, but you really have to wait until that right idea sort of kind of blossoms.
Okay.
How did you collaborate with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection?
Yeah, you got the name right.
Wow.
Cal Fire.
I can't even say that. That's great. I mean, you can talk about the research. I'll just sort of tee this up in the sense that the research really does inform our storytelling. It's extremely important that we respect the aircraft, the pilots, and the firefighters. So we went out to meet the firefighters. You guys saw the movie.
Yeah, of course.
The moment when Dusty first arrives at the air attack base, and they're all just sort of hanging out and sort of doing their own thing, and then the alarm goes off, that actually happened to us. We were at the air attack base, hanging out with the firefighters. They were cooking us a barbecue. And we were listening to their stories, and then the alarm went off, and they kicked into action. So it's amazing. But talking about Cal Fire.
All our movies are based off of truth. We don't want to make stuff up. Like he said, we let the research, develop how we want the stories to go. So when we decided upon going with an wildfire air attack movie, Cal Fire is the first place we went because they handle all of the California wildland fires.
There's a lot of
And there's a lot. Yeah, California has a lot. You guys have a lot. I mean, that's one consistent we all have. Something in common is, we all deal with wildfires, especially in this climate, in dry climates. And Cal Fire handles so much, so over 8 million acres of California wildlands. So we went to the source, tied in. We went to about 3 different air attack bases all around the coast of California. And we hooked up with a specific battalion chief on our very first visit, who became our #1 guy to go to. He was very much involved through the entire 4-year process of making our film. As Bob said, we came back changed when we met these guys. they were changed too. They were every bit as emotionally invested in making this movie as we were, because again, we're basing it off of truth. They wanted us to tell this story and have full access so that we could tell the story accurately, tell their story accurately enough. So they were involved in the script development stage, being sure our dialogue and radio chatter was accurate, in the animation process, how the airplanes actually circle and will attack a wildfire, how they will react in certain severe circumstances, even down to the sound effects. We had smoke jumpers come in and give us feedback on the sound design of our fire, because we wanted to be sure it sounded accurate as well. So that's the kind of detail that you wouldn't normally know we went through, but that's the reason we go through it, is to make it as real and truthful as possible, so it's natural and you feel like the world is real.
I mean, the details in the movie aren't there to be noticed, they're there to be felt. It needs to feel right. And the CAL FIRE, the battalion chief at CAL FIRE, we had a line of dialogue in the script that he'd approved talking about a coverage level, which is the amount of retardant they're dropped. And then when he saw the footage of the film, he's like, wait a minute, I didn't know those trees were 120 feet tall. Let's change it to a coverage level 6. Now, your general audience member isn't going to notice whether something's coverage level 4 or coverage level 6, but we're excited that he was so into it and that he wanted to sort of make that small correction. And so it was a fantastic experience working with the firefighters. I mean, at this point, they've become our friends.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks ago, we screened the movie to 3 different screenings for firefighters and their families. So we had about 100 consultants in our movie. Most of those were firefighters. So getting them, it was important for us, for them and their families to see the movie before anybody else did. And they came out of the movie absolutely thrilled and blown away. That again, we went to that much trouble to make it that accurate. But that we got it right, from the retardant drops to the dialogue chatter, and the fire effects themselves. They were really blown away that it was such a big scale movie and that it represented what they do so accurately.
Thank you.
In first, have you seen the French version of the movie? And what did you think about it? And last question, did you meet the French voices?
Oh, yes,
we
Fred
did.
Testo and
Fred and Audrey.
We got to meet Fred and Audrey, and it's always fun to meet actors doing the voices of the characters, because they do such a fantastic job casting the characters, and she's hilarious, and so I think it's going to be an excellent voice for different, of course. Fred's back doing Dusty.
Yeah.
What was the first question?
have you seen the French versions?
I haven't seen the French version. No, I have not seen it yet. They wouldn't let me stay and watch. They pulled me out to talk to you. I wanted to stay there and watch it, but no, I haven't seen it yet. But I'm going to sneak up there and watch some as soon as we're done.
Yeah. But we do know the actors very well. I mean, their work that they've done.
Right.
We were really excited, as he said, that Fred's continuing with Dusty, but Audrey being such a great comedic actress and Dipper's such a lively character is a natural choice for her to do the part.
Why have you chosen the theme of forest fire for this film?
So you know why the theme of forest fire?
Yes.
Well, that led back to the idea that Dusty, as I mentioned, Dusty, that plane is used in wildfire air attacks. So the idea that that the plane itself sort of led us into this world, and then we went off to explore it. So we just sort of let the character kind of guide us to it, which is a real sort of exciting kind of organic thing, to sort of discover. Because I didn't know anything about firefighting really when I started the film, so we had to go out and learn about it. And then I'm so thrilled that you get to see a process that you don't usually get to see. I mean, in the United States, there's over 50,000 wildfires a year, and there are men and women all over the country putting their lives on the line, every day to put these fires out. But you don't see it. You only see it if it's out of control or if there's property damage. So Dusty led us into this world, and then we were changed, when we came back from basically visiting it.
Well, and the other great thing is that it kind of goes with the theme of our movie, which is kind of a rebirth. Dusty is forced to change careers. It's the classic kind of injured athlete story. he's accomplished his dreams from the first movie, and we open up our movie where he has an injury and can no longer do what he always wanted to do. So it's about, you know, if you lose a love, can you love again? Can you find another career if you have to stop the current career? And that ties in with fire. Fire is a natural, in the ecology, of rebirth. You know, we need fire. As dangerous as it is, it's also a natural process in the ecology system that brings regrowth to forests. So it's an important process. So when studying that and doing our research, learning that fact about fire, it all kind of naturally, you know, came together to kind of support the movie as a whole.
We were talking about creating stories and sandbox earlier. Don't you want to create your own sandbox to make your own universe?
No, I understand.
Don't you feel like sometimes that, I don't know, you're playing second fiddle? No offense.
No, it's a valid question because I mean, again, we've been looking at the art from all of the fantastic French artists in here, and of course you always want to create your own world. But so to a certain extent, of course, I'd love the opportunity. Who wouldn't, right? You know, who wouldn't want this opportunity to sort of given a blank canvas and start to paint on it? However, I will say that because we're again, I mentioned we're a filmmaker-driven studio, we do get to choose our story and find it and fall in love with it. And so I'd say that even though I'm working within this world, and it's a world that John Lasseter created, so I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to sort of work within this world, the story all comes from the filmmaker. So to a certain extent, it's extremely gratifying to sort of realize.
And going into, you know, creating that storyline and supporting what Bob's said, you know, we leave Brockwash Junction in that world, and we're going into a whole new world with the Piston National Park. So being able to build that whole world, even though it's still in the overall Plains world, but it's very different from the first movie.
It's quite it's something like a small sandbox in a big one.
Oh, well, I'd say, but there's a lot of personal things. Like, you know, the movie there's the lodge in the film. I mean, my father was an architect. I love architecture. So the opportunity to sort of design and build this lodge, even though it's virtual, was exciting for me. And I actually went and studied the architect. And part of the lodge, again, something nobody would know, but there's a train station on the lodge. That train station was actually a piece of architecture that the same architect that designed the lodge at Yellowstone had designed and then had since burned down. So I thought, as a tribute to him, I'll put this old train station that he designed and put it onto the lodge. So I get to sort of pursue the things that I love and things like that. So yeah, so no matter what you do, you can't help but pour yourself into it. And yeah, of course I'd love to again have a blank canvas, but I'm thrilled and had a fantastic time working on this.
Okay, so two questions. The first one, what the idea of the cameo of Howard the Duck in the movie? There is a cameo of the print of Howard the Duck.
Oh!
So
Howard the Duck's not, it's Howard the Truck, I think.
Yeah, in the movie it's Howard the Truck, but the original movie is Howard the Duck.
You know, I can speak to that. And here's what's interesting about a little scene like that. It's very complicated because they were hiding the videotape in a box. The box, we were suggesting that it was a beta tape, so an old tape. So we had to find a movie that would actually have been in a beta box. So we had to go back to the 80s and look for a movie that we felt like we could do a fun twist on that would be from the 80s, that might be in an old beta box. And then on top of that, it has to be a movie that Blade wouldn't watch because they're hiding the TV show from them. So a little gag like that, we put way too much thought into it to make sure that it makes sense to us. So anyway, so it was actually, it may have been the story artist. We work with so many talented artists, and I think it may have been the story artist who actually came up with that joke.
Okay. And the other question, how did you work on the technical aspect of the movie? Because technically the second plane is better than the first one, visually especially. How did you work on this point?
You want to talk, we talk about from an effects standpoint. I will say this to sort of suggest the film actually, Clay Hall directed the first film, did a fantastic job of capturing accurate flight. So we were able to use his team on this film, and sort of build on that and add. He had fixed wing, we had helicopters, but then from an effects standpoint.
Yeah, the effects was the biggest challenge. I made it the most ambitious we've ever done, as I said before. So we had the largest effects team we've ever had, a big research and development team. It took us over 2.5 years before we ever had the fire. It took us that long to get the fire that we really felt like was appropriate and ready for filmmaking. Because again, if we're doing a firefighter movie, we want to be sure the fire, which is one of the lead characters.
It's in the title.
It's the villain, basically, in the movie. We want to be sure that it's accurate. So we had a lot of breakthroughs technologically, constantly throughout that 2.5 years, because there's always advancements every year because technology is moving so fast. And so we were grabbing hold of anything we could to be sure that we were getting something that was producible and sustainable throughout the 4-year course of our production.
I mean, many choices. We're CinemaScope. We wanted to be widescreen so we could celebrate the vehicles as well as the sort of panoramas of the national park. So we always want to elevate our storytelling. Everybody, all the filmmakers at Disney Toons want the next film to be bigger and better than the previous one. So there's a real great camaraderie amongst the filmmakers that we all work together to elevate each other's films.
I'm sorry, I think you have other appointment for tonight,
Oh.
and our time is up.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Thank you.